This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put South at the center. In this week's episode, we look at why communal incidents have reduced in coastal Karnataka in 2024, while it's gone up in northern Karnataka. Then we look at Telangana, where it's Congress Chief Minister Revanth Reddy versus BRS's KT Ramarao. I am Dhanya Rajendran, your host from the Bengaluru studio of the News Minute. In fact, a very pleasant Bengaluru. Joining me in the studio is the reporting head of the News Minute, Pooja Prasanna.
Hi, Dhanya.
Hello, Pooja.
It's the nicest I can be.
Yeah. And sitting across us is Anisha Sheth. She is the Karnataka Bureau Chief of the News Minute. Welcome, Anisha.
Hi.
Joining us from Wayanad, it's almost like she's settled there. She's showing no plans or no signs of coming back to Bengaluru. Is Leena Reghunath, journalist and lawyer. Leena, are you settled in Wayanad now?
Hi, Dhanya. Thanks for all the guilt tripping. I'll be there in the studio next week. Fingers crossed.
Well, you better, because we are still not giving Pooja a mic. So in the hope that you will come back. And to all the audience listening, you can still contribute to the studio fund. And joining us from Hyderabad is Yunus Lasania. Yunus was a former News Minute colleague of ours. He was heading our Telangana bureau. He is a writer, journalist, and can I call you a pop historian, Yunus?
It's actually oral historian, but okay.
Oral historian. So Yunus conducts these history walks and tours in Hyderabad. It's quite popular. In fact, I think a lot of people ask Yunus, which is the best biryani in Hyderabad, right?
Yeah.
Which is it?
Fortunately, they do.
Which is it?
I don't know. Actually, I think there's no good biryani outside only. At home only best. Nothing else.
Okay, so we will just direct everybody to Yunus's house. Okay.
Yes.
So before we go to the podcast, I have an important announcement from our sponsors.
We have sponsors.
See, got you there. That's the whole point. We do not have any sponsors. We, the News Minute and News Laundry, do not have corporate or political sponsors. We are completely dependent on our audience, our readers, and our viewers. So though we keep telling you this every week, we do see that the end of the year subscriptions dip down. So I just want to give you a reminder. Do become a subscriber after listening to this podcast. Go click on the subscription link. We have a lot of options, annual option, we have monthly option. But remember, once you become a subscriber, you get access to all the exclusive content on both News Minute and News Laundry. But more than that, you get that opportunity to support independent media. And one more quick thing, do like the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and other podcast platforms. That's completely free. Pooja, to the headlines. Pooja was caught napping. She's just switching on her laptop.
Yeah, I thought we
Pooja?
had more announcements, but anyway. Seattle cop who killed Andhra student fired after nearly 2 years. The King County Prosecutor's Office had decided to not pursue criminal charges against Seattle Police Department officer Kevin Dave, saying that there was insufficient evidence.
So that's it. He's just fired from his job. So the student, Janvi, she was run down by this cop who was overspeeding. He was actually reacting to a call, but he did not need to overspeed, is what the police department found. But what caused the anger at that time was that when Janvi was run down by this car, he actually paused, he smiled, and he said that she's of limited value. Yeah. So there was a lot of outrage, and quite disappointing that there's only termination which has happened here.
So they were racing at 120 kilometers per hour. And the body cam showed that he laughed for 4 seconds, apparently. And it's taken a lot of, lobbying by the Indian consulate in Seattle to even get him to be fired from his job. So that's terrible. B.S. Yediyurappa sexual assault case, victim's family calls for urgent legal action. Dhanya, you've covered this extensively.
Yeah, so we have been speaking about this, I think, in almost every second podcast. So B.S. Yediyurappa was accused of sexual harassment and assault by a child. So she has already given her statement before the magistrate. But B.S. Yediyurappa has approached court for quashing the case, and the family is upset that that it's taking such a long time, that the squashing case itself is going on for such a long time, because only after that can the trial begin, right? So they are very wary that the lawyers who are representing the state as of now in the court are not doing their job properly. So the brother of this child has put out a video saying that it's an appeal to Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, saying that please make sure that the case is dealt with properly. As of now, while we are recording, which is the 8th of January at 3 p.m., Siddaramaiah has not reacted to it.
Yeah.
Let's see if the Chief Minister reacts to it.
So the complaint was filed in Feb of 2024. The charge sheet was filed in June 2024. So it's about 6 months or so. But I just also want to tell people that if you want to understand more about this case, there's an interview that Dhanya has done with the victim's family. You can watch that. And Anisha, who's on the podcast with us, along with Shivani, they've written a detailed story on what the case is. The link is in the description below. Bobby Chemmanur says he's confused why actor Honey Rose filed complaint. Who wants to jump in on this first?
For those without a context, Bobby Chemmanur is a businessman based out of Kerala, the most obnoxious businessman we could say. Honey Rose is a film actor. So Bobby Chemmanur called her for an event and she is voluptuous. And therefore he made fun of her. And then later when he was asked, why did you make fun of her? He went on to say really much more derogatory stuff. So he's been taken into custody. Just a few hours before, the police have taken him to custody because Honey Rose finally went to the police and filed a complaint. For me, Bobby Chemmanur is the epitome of what perverse Malayali men are capable of. He speaks crap and there is an audience for that crap. And I see a lot of people also sort of justifying this entire thing. So Honey Rose as a person sort of owns up to her body and she has in whatever ways used that for her career, right? So people are like, you have posed this way, you have posed that way. Now if people say something about you, you should take it in your stride. You want to say something, Leena? Because we are the two Malayalis here who have been subjected to Bobby Chemmanur.
There is a lot to be said on this. One is Bobby Chemmanur, his whole business empire, he has built by turning himself into a social media phenomenon. He has his dance moves are popular on social media. The way he provocatively talks, derogatively talks about women has been trending for a long time now. And on the other end is Honey Rose, and this is a voluptuous woman who dresses provocatively, which we haven't seen in public life much in Kerala. And across South India, there is this craze of voluptuous women, but when they dress provocatively or when they take a stand or when they assert themselves, there is no acceptance for that. So I'm very glad that Honey Rose is taking this stand and challenging a powerful businessman. Bobby Chemmanur has this long time coming. I'm just surprised that Honey Rose is the first person who's going to file a case against him. The kind of objectionable things that he does on social media should have long back attracted some serious action.
So I think there's a cafe or coffee shop or something he runs. I don't know the name of that place. People who are watching can perhaps tell us that. So there are big hoardings of him, like him in dance position and etc. So maybe
does he dance well at least?
I have fortunately not watched his dances.
Oh, please. You guys haven't watched him dance? We should send this across to maybe one of our recommendations this week can be Bobby Chemmanur dancing. I think that's a must-see on social media.
So my only experience with Bobby Chemmanur was when the News Minute started initially, we had done some story which is negative about Bobby Chemmanur, or I think one of his companies. And I was constantly getting calls saying, pull down that story, pull down that story. Of course, we didn't pull down any story, but that's been my only dealing, per se, with Bobby Chemmanur.
How sad for you.
I have actually never come across his dance move. I've only seen his disgusting videos, in which he's talking. And of course, Rahul Ishwar, a man in Kerala which the national audience will also know, because since he's on every national television.
He's a staple on every debate.
On every debate. He's a part of the Sabrimala Tantri family. He's also put out a video sort of supporting Bobby Chemmanur, because I think Rahul Ishwar feels obligated to do something in support of
every man who is
accused of anything bad.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially sexual assault.
Yeah.
DMK launches Get Out Ravi campaign against Tamil Nadu Governor after assembly face-off. This is like deja vu. How many times has this happened? This is the third time he's walked out.
R.N. Ravi creates a problem every time the assembly is called.
Yeah.
I mean, the governor's address, which is ceremonial, should just finish and he should be going back to Raj Bhavan, always now ends in controversy. I mean, politically, I have always believed that the governor's role is not at all needed. And just like every good political Tamilian will tell you, what C.N. Annadurai said, that just like how a goat does not need a beard, a state does not need a governor. That's the only thing to say about R.N. Ravi and all the likes of him. And before everybody jumps saying you guys are all anti-BJP, I would say the same thing no matter which which party is in power as the union government. There should be no post of governor. It's a complete waste.
But I do think there is one use for that position.
Which is?
Destabilize governments.
Ah.
Remember HR Bharatwaj? At any given point of time, I think there are at least 3 southern states which are at war with the governor. So they have some purpose, which is to kind of...
Entertainment for the media.
Yeah, but also, I mean, they have too many powers and literally zero accountability. That is the problematic part.
But if Dhanya, if I come in here, governors from opposing parties or when the central government and state government are ruled by 2 different parties have always created troubles for the state governments. But I think it is in the recent times that we have seen so many state governments having to go to the Supreme Court asking for relief where bills are not being passed. There are serious subversions of powers of the governor, and Supreme Court has each time to step in and say, please governor, do your job, please governor, do your job. This kind of attacking anti-BJP governments across the country using a governor is an institutionalized, a very strong way of doing it is I think an invention of the recent times, and it's very sad. Last year too, with governor's address, the same thing happened and the same commotion in assembly happened, and here we are again witnessing the same thing.
But I don't know how recent it is though, because I mean, we all know about the SR Bommai case, right?
No, but I think what Leena is saying that it's become very, very frequent now, right? And it's institutionalized.
Yes.
But the problem there is exactly that. Now that the BJP has institutionalized it, whichever party comes to power next as the union government will just follow this because it's an easy being fascist at any level is easy to follow, right? That's why we should not have governors.
But again, like many things that BJP has done better, Congress started this.
Of course. So we'll go to our first topic. But before we go to the first topic, since we have Yunus, and I think Yunus escaped my question. Yunus, you have to tell us which is the best biryani in Hyderabad. Other than your house, you can name 5 restaurants. I'll not tell you to name one and get you into trouble.
I'll tell you one thing. My favorite place is this place called Grand Hotel. That is the oldest Irani cafe in Hyderabad. Okay, so I'm biased towards Grand, no matter what. But if
Pooja,
somebody
why are you
who
writing?
is going to Hyderabad, please avoid Paradise. Paradise is not really nice at all. I mean, nothing to say it's bad, but just not something where I would go. I guess there's a place called Biryani Wala that's also pretty decent, and then you have one more place called Fanus. Fanus is FANOOZ, not the Bangalore Fanus. Fanus is a little bit more milder, I would say, in that sense. But 3 only, I can't go beyond 3. 5 is too much in Hyderabad.
Didn't you also write, that Bangalore biryani scene is almost as good or better?
Yeah, I have to clear this. My point of the story was that people from Hyderabad need to start looking beyond Hyderabad for biryani. Like there's a lot of
I agree.
snobbery here among people. There's a lot of snobbery here. Biryani has to have layers, or that you can't put this, or that you can't put that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It's okay. It's like nobody has set the rules for biryani anywhere. So I think that's all I wrote about.
The king of that Hyderabad snobbery is saying all
The
this.
king of Hyderabad snobbery,
Yeah.
Nawab snobbery is saying that start eating other biryanis. But I want to tell the people of Hyderabad, try Ambur biryani. Try
Talapakatti.
Talapakatti.
It's okay.
Talapakatti also fine.
Small grain one, yeah.
No, but try Kannur biryani. You may look down upon it, but do try the Kannur biryani also.
Which is known as Malabar biryani.
Talasheri biryani.
Talasheri biryani, yes. Talasheri biryani. Pooja, of course, is a vegetarian.
I also eat biryani.
I don't even know why she's part of this conversation. And she was taking notes while Yunus was listing out the restaurants.
Pooja will only have biryani rice, no, that's all.
Yeah. So Pooja's like, best biryani rice of Hyderabad. Go to biryani.
You know, this reverse racism is not okay.
Okay, so we'll now move on to the first topic after that biryani discussion. It's a serious topic from Karnataka. PUCL, which has put out data which shows that communal incidents in coastal Karnataka have come down in 2024, while government data shows that communal incidents have increased in northern Karnataka. So we are going to look at the data. Anisha is joining us. She did a story yesterday. Anisha, can you tell us broadly what the data shows?
This is 2 different data sets. One is prepared by an independent activist based in Mangalore, and the other data set is from the Home Department. Now that comes from an unstarred question that was asked during the last legislature session. And in that data set, what somebody asked for is how many cases have been registered across the state under anti-communal laws. Now, we don't have anything such as an anti-communal law, so my best guess is that these were registered under sections 153 and 295A of the IPC, which basically relate to promoting enmity between different groups, which could also be religious, and also deliberate acts to outrage religious feelings and insult a religion and so on. Now, the data compiled by this activist from Mangalore, he's been doing this since 2010. So he's been compiling media reports about any kind of incident which could be of a communal nature. And this includes, attacks on couples, interfaith couples, moral policing, cattle vigilantism, these things where, skirmishes during religious processions, other kinds of violence, murders, attacks, all these things. And according to that data, so in 2021, he compiled like 120 such reports from the media about incidents like this. So last year, in 2024, it's come down to 50. So the number of incidents has been on the decline. Similarly, if you look at the government data from the Home Department, that number has increased. So it goes from 51 in 2020 to 143 in 2024, which is last year.
That is for which areas?
Exactly.
Across the state.
Across the state, it has gone up, but in
Yeah.
coastal Karnataka, it has come down.
Yeah, I mean, it's less.
So
much
I'll
less
just
than it.
read out
Yeah.
more of the data. 2021, Suresh Bhatt of PUCL had said there were 120 reports of communal violence, which could be of various forms. In 2022, it shot up to 174. Then it's declining. 2023, there's 84, and 2024, that's 50. So the first question, I'll come to Pooja first and then Anisha. In your first thoughts, like, why has the violence come down in coastal Karnataka? And when we say coast, we're talking about Udupi and Dakshina Kannada.
I am not surprised
Hmm.
because my sense is, these incidents don't happen in isolation. They happen for a reason, and that reason is to convert the region first to think in a certain way and then get electoral benefits out of it. In the coastal 2 districts that we're talking about, that experiment has been going on for at least 4 decades. People trace it usually for the last 2 decades, but it has been going on for at least since the 60s actually. In fact, in 1967, Jan Sangh, which is predecessor for the BJP, won 3% of the votes there, whereas across Karnataka. Whereas the communist parties at the time got just 1.5% when they were much more stronger at the time. Also, the Udupi Municipal Corporation was under Jan Sangh for a long time, almost 40 years. So there has been a base for it. The communalism, the polarization kept going on. There are 2 phases in which they operate. Academics look at it as war of positions, war of maneuver. War of position is where you first influence the thinking of the people. You occupy important positions in cultural spaces, educational spaces. This is, I won't say it is under the surface, but it is not direct confrontation. They're not going to go and say, vote for BJP, vote for this party. But they're going on creating an atmosphere of polarization. That was successful in the coastal region. And then they also went on to the next phase, which is your war of maneuver, where they got electoral benefits out of it. They have saturated that region. Now, not for 1 minute am I saying that these 2 districts are not communal anymore, right? I'm just saying that there is no need for these incidents, these attacks every day to convert people. The focus has now shifted to northern parts of Karnataka, where they are now in that first phase of war of position. And I think Anisha can in fact tell us a little bit more about how the first phase was fought in the coastal Karnataka.
But do you agree with this assessment, Anisha, that basically it is polarized enough, so there's no point of having these incidents of violence? I also want to ask, are people also like sort of self-censoring, right? Like how you tell journalists that when you keep on criticizing them or intimidating them, they self-censor. So there is a sense in that community not to have interfaith couples, or are they careful? Do they self-censor as a community now?
I don't think self-censoring per se is happening because, see, the attacks are still happening. It means people still are going and, associating with people of different communities, basically whoever they want. The fear is definitely there. Not that it isn't. I mean, like, two of my friends I know, like Muslim men who have been, like, roughed up and assaulted. And yeah, so it's there.
But
The
why
fear
has it
is there.
gone down?
So yeah, I differ slightly with what Pooja is saying, because I think that, see, like as she said, there is no need for it anymore. But I think that what the Sangh has always done is that they are not in it for any benefits. They're in it for the long haul, right? The long haul they have achieved over there. It's not a question of them wanting to do it anymore or needing to do it anymore. It's more of that, see, you cannot look at Hindutva, at least in the coast, and I think the same thing applies to, other parts of Karnataka, at least as far as I can tell. You cannot look at Hindutva and communalization without looking at caste. Okay, because from the beginning, like, the earliest converts to the ideology have been the Saraswat Brahmins and Brahmins,
And
right?
the foot soldiers for Billawas later.
Yeah, and the foot soldiers have been the ones from the lower Shudra communities, not even the dominant ones. So the dominant Shudra communities, the landowning castes, they're not foot soldiers as much as, other castes such as the Billawas, the Belchadas, or Pujaris and, Mulyas and all of these other communities were. So what has happened is that over the years, in the last 20 years, since, like, say, from the 1990s, when the violence really took off, it's come to a level where it's been 30 years now, and people have realized that, okay, you know what? And the organizations have also behaved that way, right? They're all for it, all, back these activists to the hilt in terms of indoctrinating them and then enabling them to carry out the violence. But then what happens once the police cases, start coming, right? And there have been police cases, right? And in so many of these cases, whether it's cattle smuggling, whether these cattle vigilantism, moral policing, or other kinds of violence and murders, these activists who commit the violence are mostly left to fend for themselves. There is a very small group of really hardcore Hindutva activists who will still continue to do it. It's not that it isn't there, but it's come down quite a bit. So ideologically speaking, nobody has had a change of heart. Okay, that is too much to hope for at this point, at least. But they're no longer participating in violence. And there is also the realization that, like, say, for example, one of the architects of the Suratkal violence in the wake of the Babri Masjid, Satyajit Suratkal, in an interview with Shivani, my colleague, she talks about how, there is a realization among them that as Billawas, they've always been sidelined and considered unimportant. They've never been given any important positions in leadership. Okay, not just within the organizations, but also in terms of electoral leadership and so on. So still, if you ask him, just let me finish. So, like, when Shivani and I were discussing this, so I, finally, I said, how does he see himself? And even though throughout all this, when he talks about Narayan Guru's teachings, being, about the caste hierarchies and all of that, he still considers himself Hindu. That is his primary identity, and that is Hindutva's achievement. That you have changed somebody's primary identity into this, to such an extent that even mild criticism, even remote perceived criticism, incites all kinds of feelings of hostility, antagonism, and even violence. So that, I think, is Hindutva's achievement in coastal Karnataka.
So 1 minute. So you are saying that basically they've polarized enough, and which you agree with, that the long haul has been achieved there.
Yeah.
And the second is a more, more nuanced thing, where we are saying that all the activists who do the violence are kind of tired because they have to keep repeating the cycle, and there are cases. So I want to ask you, Pooja, a political point. 2023, we saw the Congress getting elected to power in Karnataka. 2023 and 24 is when the incidents of violence have come down. Should we give any credit to the Congress here?
No.
We've said this, the 23 win of Congress is not as much theirs as much as it is for the activists who work tirelessly to call out BJP, particularly Basavaraj Bommai, for his statements, for his open endorsement of the kind of communal violence that we saw. So I know I wouldn't give too much credence to Congress, not too much credit. I mean, they started that, Anisha and I were discussing yesterday, they started that anti-communal cell under the Mangaluru Commissioner. But do you really need a separate cell is my question. You have enough sections in the IPC now, BNS, to deal with these incidents, right?
But I think the cell will be just police people who are focused.
They don't have any
like
staff.
women's cell will focus on women's
They don't
cases.
have
They don't
the
have a
manpower for
mandate.
that.
They
Okay,
don't
okay,
have,
yeah.
okay, one.
But they make for
they
great
have no job
headlines.
description,
But
basically.
what Congress has done right is sending out a message that you will not get the kind of long rope that you did under BJP. And I think that is a very important message to send out. I remember getting calls from some of my sources in the right wing saying that we are being harassed by cops under Siddaramaiah. And when I said, explain to me exactly what you mean so we can convert that into a story. It was primarily, it boiled down to we're not being allowed to do what we want, right? We are kind of being pulled back.
If you notice, she said her sources in the right wing.
Yeah.
We should ask the question, right? Why do you have sources in the right wing?
How do you
Pooja?
think stories come when you
But
ask me Monday morning?
What was your previous job? In fact, a lot of people still put that in the comments, saying that what were you doing in Republic TV, Pooja?
I was an internal dissenter.
Yeah, one South Central podcast will be dedicated to Pooja's life in Republican
That's
times
going to be
now.
my book. A podcast is not enough for that.
Okay. No, so before I go to Yunus and Leena, we'll just quickly discuss why North Karnataka. Okay, so coastal Karnataka, it has come down. It's had a history for many decades. But what about Northern Karnataka? There are around 12 districts of Northern Karnataka. There have been incidents in Belagavi, in Dharwad, and in Koppal district,
Yeah.
right? Why has there been increase in these places? And also, I think, in the Mysore Mandya region.
Yeah.
Because I had reported once or twice from Mandya itself, where there were quite a few incidents, the Hanuman flag incident in Keragodi and all that. So, Pooja, why has the focus shifted to Northern Karnataka and Mysore Mandya region, and how successful have been these groups like Bajrang Dal, VHP, Hindu Sena and all that? So
quickly, let me break down. When we say North Karnataka, there are two regions, and both regions are very different in nature. One region, which is your Belagavi region, is very close. It's called Mumbai Karnataka. It's close to Pune and that belt, Goa, Pune and that belt. Those regions have been polarized for much longer, and they have seen results there as well. Now, the reason for that, coastal Karnataka polarization is very different from what we're seeing there. There you have, Sambhaji Brigade, which is a very popular outfit from Kolhapur. They have been coming here, and there is also a linguistic angle to this. There is also a Maratha pride angle to this, and Shivaji is an icon that they misinterpret and say that, just like he took on Aurangzeb, you as a Maratha are mandated to take on Muslims because it is a war for your identity. They rely on history much more than coastal Karnataka does. Coastal Karnataka Muslims, at least a section of them, were very affluent. They went abroad and they came back with money. So that was being used to kind of polarize the Hindu youth. Here it is a different story. They rely on history. The same is true for, and I want Yunus to comment on this, for the Kalyana Karnataka, which is the Hyderabad Karnataka region, where they keep forever talking about Nizams and Razakar and all of that. Because presently, the Muslims there too are in very bad shape, as well as Hindus. Now, this is a region that performs terribly on human development indices. So they can't talk about anything but history. Why these two regions, before I want Yunus to come in, is because the caste equation wise, there are a lot of Lingaites there. They have become BJP's vote base for at least about 20 years now, if not longer. Before that, they were with the Congress. And they saw that they can no longer rely on individual caste groups to vote for them. So an easier thing to do is to bring them under a larger umbrella of Hindutva. And this is an easier way to do. This is a simplistic explanation.
So when I went to Keragode, I remember that it was over the Hanuman flag. Yeah. There was polarization for many, many days. There were shutdowns. So I had met this group of people who were actually a civic group, and they were going from school to school, college to college, to talking about secularism and communal harmony. So one of them was telling me that it's actually surprising that it became communal so quickly in a place like Keragodi, which has not had a recent history of communalization. So they were saying that, look, this is where the BJP, the Sangh, and others are focusing now. Similarly, we have a story in Telangana, right? Eunice.
Can I just make
Yeah.
a quick point about that? There were two major episodes. One is this Uri Gowda Nanjegowda nonsense they tried, which was just before the 2023 elections.
Now, explain when you say nonsense.
So they came up with two characters and they called those two characters Uri Gowda and Anje Gowda. They stole characters from Tamil Nadu because they didn't know how they looked, right? And they started this entire story that these were the guys who killed Tipu Sultan, brave Vokkaliga foot soldiers who killed Tipu Sultan. And he didn't die in a war with the British, as history has shown us. So this was again an attempt to pitch Vokkaligas against Muslims. Now this region has a large Muslim presence, especially Srirangapatna. So the idea was to kind of break that down. We have in fact reported from that, and even Vokkaliga youth were laughing, right? This was before JDS and BJP came together. So it did not, go to the next level. Post their tie-up, post their alliance is when the Keregodu incident happened. And that was successful.
And there Kumaraswamy actually took, he normally wears his green shawl because that's a farmer's
It's
shawl.
also the JDS.
JDS, but basically agrarian, right? And then he changes that to a saffron shawl. So one thing which a lot of farmers pointed out to me is that how quickly he changed from green to saffron.
I think that's a turning point. In 20 years, we'll probably look at that as a milestone.
Yes. Yunus, coming to you, Telangana also, we have seen a lot of polarization happening in the last few years. And if you go by electoral gains, it has given the BJP electoral gains, right? So just tell us quickly as to what have you been witnessing in Telangana in the past few years?
And the Hyderabad, Karnataka region too.
Historically, I think this Bidar, Raichur and Gulbarga were part of the erstwhile Hyderabad state. And I believe in that, if you look at the politics of the Hyderabad state, except for Hyderabad city, like where I am, the rest of the state was quite poor, I believe, like except for the towns, maybe a little bit. I really don't think the state. So, a lot of people love to talk about how rich Hyderabad was, but when they talk about how rich Hyderabad was, it's only the city and its affluent people, right? So, Bidar also, that's why also I don't think there was a lot of wealth there to begin with, number one. And so one of the most important things about 1948, the year of annexation to India or merger or whatever you want to call it today, is that a lot of violence against Muslims also happened in Bidar. So this is not something that is up for debate, because the Sundarlal committee report actually very specifically mentions this. That itself, the committee report also actually has given a rough estimate, but I think at least 15 to 20% of the Muslims who were killed in the aftermath of the annexation were killed in Bidar. So there's a history of communal violence there. And I believe the attribution to that is that the Razakars were very active in Bidar, because of which there were killings of Muslims in response to it post the annexation. So that this is something, if you look at the state's history also, after 1956 is when Telangana was cut off from the Hyderabad state and merged with Andhra, and Bidar went to Karnataka, right? So if you look at Karnataka, Hyderabad-Karnataka region actually used to always observe this Hyderabad Liberation Day. Telangana never observed that until recently, right? So if and if I'm not correct, I remember this very clearly. See that Hyderabad, Karnataka and Bombay, Karnataka, what's the other part? That Maharashtra, the Marathwada areas. So the Marathwada areas and the Karnataka areas always observed this Hyderabad Liberation Day. That was not here for a very long time, because Telangana and Andhra were one. After the formation of Telangana, and I remember this very clearly, at least till 2017 or 18, nobody was talking about Hyderabad liberation or annexation or anything. And I remember this very clearly, because I was the only one who was talking about it. And I remember writing about it, and people were asking like, why are you writing about this topic? Everyone's forgotten about it. But I'm proud to say I was spot on, because of the fact that 17-18 point BJP started this whole thing of we have to observe Telangana or Hyderabad Liberation Day. And if you ask me, I would say in the last few years, I think this has something to do with also Bandi Sanjay's shift in terms of how BJP has gone from like this whole, facade of development to like this core Hindutva push, right, under Bandi Sanjay. That number one. Number two, you have people like Itala who shifted also here. Like there are some political and there are some communal, or not communal, you can say there's some more of a Hindutva push. It's a combination of different things. But I think the fact that BJP went from one seat in 2018 to 8 seats in the assembly with 20% of vote share is a very, very big factor. And I don't think that people have taken that too seriously, because then you saw the immediate result of that in the Lok Sabha election, where BRS basically went zero, and only you had Congress and BJP only. And I think if from what we're seeing currently right now in terms of the opposition space, BRS is the only one that is more visible. But I think the day BRS slips up or the day Congress slips up, I think BJP is very easily a party that can replace it. But the only thing right now, I think they're still facing a leadership crisis. From what I understand, it is between Itala and the older BJP leaders who are saying that why should we give it to an outsider?
Anisha, Yunus was saying that if the BRS or Congress slips up, the BJP has already started making inroads properly and they can at some point of time become the government there, right? So you both were talking about how coastal Karnataka is polarized enough. But is there a reversal that can happen? Is that even possible?
I would like it to. That's a difficult question to answer because, see, we have to remember that the BJP and the Sangh is an ideological movement. They are motivated by all kinds of reasons, but one of them is also, I think, a genuine belief in a large grandness of India, Akhand Bharat, or whatever you want to call it. And I think that is a very heady kind of vision to sell to somebody. It's not just about hatred or demonizing Muslims or demonizing Christians and so on, right? So they invoke all kinds of imageries here, like how Pooja was talking earlier about using history in different parts of northern Karnataka and and so on. That historical project didn't quite work in coastal Karnataka because in the 60s and 70s, so first of all, the region is very, very diverse. Okay, you have Mangalore has 6 names in 6 languages, and all of them are still in use.
Anisha was
Okay.
dying
Yes, I was
to
dying
make
to
this
say
point.
this.
Yes.
I was dying to say
What
this.
are those 6
Yeah,
names,
come on,
Anisha?
tell us.
Thank you
Yes.
very much. Okay. So it's called Kudla in Tulu. It's called Maikala in Bari. It is called Mangalapura in Malayalam. It is called Kodiyal in Konkani, Mangalore in English, and Mangaluru in Kannada. Okay. And then there is one story which I'm not sure of, but I'll still say it anyway because I want to. There is I think it was called, there's a story that it was called Manjaran or Manjuran in Arabic also. Okay, so you are talking about a historically diverse place, linguistically diverse. It's absolutely rich in history and so on. Imagine it was an international trade center for a good 1,000 years before our times, right? Even up until the 1950s. So this is the kind of place that you're talking about, and all kinds of communities, religious, linguistic, everybody had very, very close relationships with each other. So, like for example, so where did the the broader Sangh strike first? When Hindus and Muslims are living together so closely, have such good relationships with each other, how do you strike at that? Right? The oldest anxiety in the world, say the Muslims are after your women. Okay. And that is where, it started in the 1960s and 70s, long before Babri Masjid came about. Right. And this is something that the journalist I've quoted in my story, Naveen Surinje, he's a senior Kannada journalist, and, he has studied this communalization process quite a bit, and he's now researching it also. And so far his findings have been that, it was and that Mangalore as an international trade center is also very, very important, because that port, Dakya as we call it in Tulu, is super important, because that is where the Mogaviras, who are the fishing community, and the Muslims would go together out to sea to fish. Okay. And when they come, so fishing works like this: somebody goes, catches a fish, then it's auctioned off, and then there is a retail sale, right? So the Muslims and the Mogaviras would go out to sea together and come back, auction the fish. And who were the buyers at these auctions? They were Muslims, right? The Muslims would buy the fish wholesale, and then who are the ones who are retailing? It is the Mogavira women. So for I don't know how many years, it was Mogavira women who would carry the fish on their heads in their baskets and go from door to door selling fish. Everybody back home eats, everybody back in Mangalore eats fish. Okay. So in that sense, it's such a uniting factor, right? So then in the 1960s, at some point, word spread that, some Muslim man has run off with a Mogavira woman. And then there were riots at that point of time of some kind. There were clashes of some kind. Similarly, there's another town, Ullal, which is historically, it was ruled by the Queen of Ullal, Abbaka, Rani Abbaka. And that is also another place where, so contrary to popular perception, people think that Beri is a language spoken only by the Muslims. It is not. It is spoken by some Hindu communities as well. And as a linguistic community, the Belchadas, as we call it, in Tulu, in Malayalam, they are called Tiyas, and then there's a third term for it called Malayali Billawas. Okay, so it's all the same community, and they all speak Beri. So Muslims and these Belchadas used to live together. And they have a temple called the Bhagavati temple, which is right next to the Dargah in Ullal, which is considered, the Ajmer of South India, whatever. So it's really popular, and across the region, there is a high regard for that Dargah. Everybody goes to the Dargah. And same way with the Bhagavati Jatre temple fair, when it used to happen, Hindus and Muslims would all go for it. So again, that is where they struck. And again, word spread that there is there was some story about an animal being butchered and, in front of the mosque or the Dargah and so on. And that's how clashes started. But back then, the whole Belchada community got together and they're like, okay, you know what? This is not this is not done. And they went around door to door talking to people and saying, okay, the violence has to stop. Okay. This is something, this kind of community concern, not just for themselves, but for others, is impossible to imagine today.
But has that been broken quite a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is...
Yeah. Can I give you one example, Dhanya?
Can
I just give you one example to what extent it's gone nuts? I'm sorry to be using the word, but remember in 2005, there was one rally, 2015, I think, there was a rally in Mangalore. And there was this 18-year-old Sadhvi from the VHP. She's barely legal, okay? And she's standing there in a open ground of people, a few thousand people aram se would be there. And she says, अगर कोई तुम्हारी माँ बेटियों को आँख उठाकर भी देखे तो उसके शीश काट डालो. And you know what happens? The whole thousands of people cheer like as if they are watching a cricket match where their favorite team is winning. So this is the level at which we are.
So I'll just take the question forward. But to everybody listening, you must have seen that Anisha is saying, okay, right? Anisha was a teacher for a few years, and that's very much showing she's back in the classroom. Leena, okay?
No, I never spoke this much in the classroom.
Yunus, right?
I swear,
you
I
heard
just
everything.
Did.
Anisha has said this at least. I was very amused by the way you were saying the story. But
Dhanya is playing her drinking game in her head the whole time.
Yeah. So when I asked Anisha about a reversal, whether it's possible, I was not meaning it idealistically, but whether socially, politically, there can be a pushback.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem is that once there is a pushback and the BJP sees that their electoral prospects are going down, they can always polarize again, right?
I don't know where I'm finding this optimism from today. But since it's been such a bleak conversation, here's my 2 cents. I think it has already started. Look, while Karnataka was not always a completely progressive state, as opposed to what many people want to believe, there have been certain progressive syncretic traditions that are still preserved. In the part where Anisha comes from, Chittapur, right? Chitrapur, near Bhatkal. This is a temple where even now Muslims have, and Bhatkal, as we all remember, was one of the most vilified places because there were people who came out of there who were convicted terrorists. So in that place, there are still people, Muslims, who go and offer their prayers before a jatre at a temple. In northern part of Karnataka, in districts like Raichur, Bidar, there are still dargahs that are run by Lingaites. I know that this makes for a great feature story and all of that. But when I say that there has been some reversal, I don't mean people have suddenly realized that there is no religion and all of that. I feel that when you remember the story we did of Muslim traders being chased from outside the temples. that didn't get support because people realized that we've been doing this forever and you can't target somebody I've sold stuff with for decades, his father and my father before me. And that fell flat. So my hope is that the communities within Hindus will at some point start pushing back, saying this is enough. And I see that happening in bits and parts. Don't ask me where I'm getting this optimism
No, I
from.
also agree with that in the sense that there has always been resistance. Even like say, if you are still hearing of incidents of moral policing happening, it means that people know what is happening but are still choosing to associate with whoever they like. Right? And you see that even in parts of North Karnataka, why is there a backlash? Because people are continuing to associate and they are doing it despite that. And also, like, some of the syncretic traditions and all of that that Pooja was talking about. Like, for example, there is this, in Tulunadu, that coastal Karnataka, the dominant form of faith or worship or whatever is called Bhutaradhane, which is basically spirit worship or ancestral worship. And so there are different kinds of deity, but the logic of the system is that the deities which are worshipped are believed to be real people who died in a tragic manner or were killed unfairly or unjustly and so on. So one of those deities that the fishing communities worship is Babbarya. Babbarya is considered to be a Muslim fisherman, and he is a deity for the fishing community. So there are all kinds of stories like this where, every community has a role to play in a form of worship. And I think that is also important because superficially at least, it holds everybody together.
Leena, you know that we are punishing you because you're staying back in Wayanad, right? That's why we didn't come to you. So now we will. For any last comments, thoughts on this topic?
First comments, poor thing.
Last comments to close this topic, but first from her.
Dhanya, I feel I feel incredibly indebted to a place like News Minute because back when I started reporting about political violence and Hindutva, there were not many places who would report this vastly with this much knowledge and with this much courage as I'm witnessing here. So I can say that having done most of my life's work of understanding political Hindutva's work, my reporting from Gujarat, from Kerala, and all of that, that I'm immensely grateful that there is a place like News Minute here who and these brave women editors and reporters who are putting this news together, because this is so vital to the understanding of of India and its working modern India. What I have understood in my reporting of all these years, for people who might not have followed my work, maybe I can recommend it at the end of this podcast, is that to the political Hindutva project, these kind of big scale political violence is the core of it, it's the center of it. And some listeners said that the more I use the word narrative, it is turning into a drinking game. But there is a kind of politics, there is a kind of narrative that the bigger Sangh Parivar is trying to establish. And it runs this political violence like an industry. So like an industry, you run it when it's profitable, when it's maintainable in that area, and you pull back when there is a setback, when there is a lull, maybe when the market is saturated. So when the market is saturated, as means there are foot soldiers who are ingrained by daily Sangh classes of who the enemy is and how the enemy has to be tackled and being given weapon training. This is the narrative that I've watched from the RSS headquarters of how extensively they plan it with the centralized headquarters, and they have foot soldiers in every place, and there are people that they parachute down to places of violence to orchestrate it in the manner so that it's successful. And it cannot be maintained for a long period of time because of the cost it gives their foot soldiers also. So they do it. Then when the sort of the industry's standards have been achieved, they have to pull back a little, shift it to other places, and it has to be tallied against the gains that they want to gain in that place. So this kind of understanding that your newsroom is bringing to this issue is I think India should be, and every audience who are listening to it, if you are putting your money into this kind of bringing this kind of an understanding to the table, they should be immensely grateful, and that is right use of whatever money you have to put into journalism. So yeah, I just end with that. And I think you've correctly mapped the local features that influence it, and also the growth and the way that it ends up, and it's the same playbook everywhere, that that every place that have very diverse history has been using fear and terror. They have sort of changed the story of that place to suit their suit their vote bank politics.
So, just to quickly add something to what Leena was saying about communal coverage, one thing I used to find strange when I was a younger reporter is that I think even now a few of the newspapers will not tell you which community is fighting against which community, right? They'll say majority community, minority versus minority, and everybody, it's always a clash. For a clash basically is two equal people clashing with each other, right? You are never told who's the oppressor and the oppressed. I think for us the first question was to start naming people, right? So even when it's individual murder, or we started naming the community, and then there was a whole discussion in the newsroom with, of course, Sudeepta, who's our executive editor, as to how to whether to call oppressed caste, oppressor caste, lowered caste. So we have there's a lot of reading that you can do on the site on why we use certain terms. We do go wrong at times, but we try to figure out how to report things.
Can I quickly make a point here, Dhanya? Just one quick point. So I think it's important, like you said, to name people, because contrary to popular understanding or knowledge or whatever, it is not just Hindutva groups who are going around doing moral policing. At one point of time, this was from, I think, Sudeepta, our executive editor's work. There were, in Mangalore, Hindu fundamentalists, Muslim fundamentalists, and Christian fundamentalists. So everybody is bothered about who the women in the community are going around with. So let's not mince any. Yeah, so it's always important to figure out who is doing what.
But in Mangalore, when the lists come, it's always like Hindu fanatics, then Muslim moral policing.
The Christian thing fizzled out very quickly because they're just not.
But even this list, I saw there was one moral policing by Muslims. In this 2024 list also.
So it's come down dramatically across the board.
But I just want to say the nice things that Leena said about us, I swear we did not ask her to say it. But what we are asking of you today is, like Leena, if you think that we've added value to our reportage, because we don't just, paratroop reporters when something happens and then they'll just say, this happened, this person got killed, that person got killed, these many people arrested, these are the sections, over and out. People like Anisha go there, spend a lot of time in talking to people. Shivani has done fantastic work. Before that, Prajwal. Yunus also has done some great work from Telangana and Andhra. If you really like the kind of work they do, one, you can contribute to our reporting fund. So Anisha can go on the field much, much more.
Yes, please.
And of course, you can become a subscriber, both of News Minute and News Laundry, because that's one way you can make sure that we sustain this kind of coverage.
Okay, with that, we move on to the second topic, in which Yunus will take center stage because the topic is from Telangana. Revanth Reddy, the Chief Minister, is who we'll discuss because of the number of cases number of cases and inquiries that he has begun after taking oath. The latest being the Formula E case against KT Ramarao, who is a leader of the BRS. KTR has been questioned. He had actually filed a quash petition in the court, but he did not get any relief. For those listening and watching, Yunus, quickly explain to us what is this Formula E case?
So, Formula E, first of all, is this race that the last government organized in 2023 February. It was this very big deal, for those of you who have not even seen it. It was this huge race that they organized in the middle of the city. Normally, it was a spectacle, right? So it was sort of a big deal for the city, maybe in the sense that we got this here. So what happened after the Congress comes to power is, first thing they've done, and I remember this immediately by around January 2024, is that there is start of this whole buzz that Formula is going to be cancelled. So that's when we all, at least I got an inclination that, okay, it's not going to happen this year. By that time itself, somebody in the Congress told me that, okay, most likely we are going to go and see what KTR has done. If there's like a chance, he might even be pulled up for something. That's when it began, like early last year itself. But back then, nothing really happened. And I think since then, there was this whole, Revanth has been going after, the Congress, sorry, the BRS in whatever way he can. And I think December, finally, the government got to booking KTR for, I believe, misappropriation or transfer of 45 crores from the government. So KTR was the MA, Municipal Administration and Urban Development Minister also. 45 crores was transferred for Formula E, and I believe the whole issue is that it was done in foreign currency, a British firm, and because of which the state government was fined by the RBI. So according to the FIR, it says that when the government went to see why it got fined 8 crore rupees, it was because there was some kind of foreign currency exchange rule that was violated. So that's the whole issue, that 45 crores was transferred without any state cabinet sanction or something to that extent. And Arvind Kumar, who was the head of the HMD and the principal secretary of the MIUD department, also has been pulled up, and BLN Reddy, the HMDA chief engineer. I believe these are the three main people: KTR, Arvind Kumar, and BLN Reddy. So that, I mean, this is the FIR on record part of it. I guess the other part of it is the
just coming in once here, Yunus. There is a company called Ace Next Gen. That's the company which was actually in charge of this Formula E race, and they're, I think, a subsidiary of Greenco, which is the energy company. Green energy company. So basically, in 2023, when this race happened, and Yunus was basically pointing out at Pooja and me as those people who have not watched the race. Yeah. So when the race happened, Ace Next said that they did not make enough revenues or what was projected, and they did not want to do the next season of the race. So KTR wanted to go ahead with the race, which is when a certain amount of money has to be paid to the Formula E race itself. So they paid 45 to 50 crores from the government to ensure that Hyderabad gets this race again. So the case is that you have caused a loss to the exchequer by taking this money from the government, while Ace Next should have actually paid. Instead of fining Ace Next, you went and paid the money and to make sure this race comes back.
So there's no precedence. My point is that the company here, Ace, is right in saying that we didn't make a profit because private companies do things to make a profit. That's not the government's mandate. Now, I don't know more details of the case, but if the idea was to make sure that Hyderabad gets it second consecutive year, there is nothing wrong with it. ED is here because they are looking at a money laundering angle, like Yunus said, because of foreign currency and all of that. But in itself, I think the allegation is that you caused a loss to the exchequer. There is no individual gain to any of the people involved that has been alleged so far, from my understanding.
No, but there is also the connection that Greenco owners are very close to the BRS, right, Yunus?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think within the last 24 hours, the Telangana ACB had conducted raids at Greenco Group's offices in Hyderabad and districts of Andhra also in this whole Formula E case. And, that pretty much also, I think Greenco also is in the dock apart from KTR. So, at this point, I believe the ACB is also investigating, the whole sponsorship agreement and the event funding and what was the company's political contribution, etc., etc. So, yeah, I mean, and I believe, the group had also donated money to the BRS.
Yes, they had donated a lot of money to the BRS.
Electoral
bonds. But, I want to have a larger discussion, not just about the Formula E race. And you can come in, Leena and Anisha also. So, basically, Revanth Reddy has not gone after KTR or the BRS with just this one case. I'm going to read out the number of cases or inquiries, okay? First, the Telangana government appointed a judicial commission, now headed by Justice Madan Lokur, to inquire into execution of two thermal power stations and basically electricity purchase agreements. Then Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh Commission is investigating construction of 2 barrages in the Kaleshwaram lift irrigation scheme. There is also a phone tapping case against the former BRS government, where they have been accused of illegally intercepting and monitoring the communication of different bureaucrats and political opponents. Then there is a Formula E case, and there is also talk that the Dharani portal that would be investigated. So, multiple levels, the BRS is being investigated by the Congress. What is Revanth Reddy's political point here, Pooja?
So, Revanth Reddy has been creating this. I'll take that again. So, Revanth Reddy has been creating this image for himself that he is a decisive leader. He's somebody who's acting. And, we saw how he went after, people in the Hydra episode as well. Many of BRS leaders also were issued notice and all of that. But also, there is a lot of personal vendetta between KTR and Revanth Reddy. And those who have followed the run-up to the election, the campaign had gotten very personal and quite nasty. And if I may add, from both sides, some of the Telugu interviews that Revanth Reddy had given were quite nasty at the point. So there is a personal vendetta angle of it. Second, to finish off KTR and the family, to make sure that they don't bounce back, because many people do still believe that this setback is temporary. They still have grassroots very much intact, and they will come back, if not this term, next term. So Revanth wants to make sure that he kind of ties them up. And this is my personal take. I think he also wants to keep them busy so they don't continue poaching MLAs, because in a sense, BRS has made a cottage industry out of poaching opposition MLAs. They did that for 2 consecutive terms.
How is this being looked at in Telangana itself, Yunus, that Revanth Reddy is asserting himself as a chief minister who will go behind these people, or are his actions being justified?
I mean, honestly, the fact of the matter is that he is the first time chief minister, right? So he also has to show that he is going to stick to his words. He has said all those things before winning, that he is going to inquire into Kaleshwaram, into this and that. So it's not something that we should always be surprised about also. But the other part is also political. So I mean, from whatever I've been told so far, it's also more of a it's also what Pooja said also is right, that they also do want to tie up the BRS to some extent, but they also don't want to make arrest and make them into something bigger. Otherwise, it'll also help them galvanize. So, but people associated, people who have helped the Congress win and come to election, they're very happy saying that now the BRS is getting a taste of its own medicine, to know that how we felt when they were in power for 10 years. So it's like there are different sides to the story. There is a political side also at the end of the day, and as far as BRS is concerned, the mystery right now is where is KCR, right? So I don't know if this is going to help draw KCR out finally, because right now KTR and Harish Rao are the only two people on the ground from the party. Like, they are literally the face of the party at this time. Like, Harish Rao is, I believe, handling most of the rural area issues, and KTR very obviously is handling more of the civic urban issues and other things. And I think KTR is probably, if he is gone, then it will also come in. I mean, it comes just after Kavita's arrest, right? So now after Kavita, then you have KTR now who's going to this whole thing. So yeah, I mean, I believe it might also be this thing where they're trying to draw out KCR to get him also into the public sphere. And honestly, if you ask me, I too was expecting, I was really expecting to see KCR as an opposition leader, but he has so far not really done much, I believe, in the last 1 year.
Why can't we let people retire? Why can't
his health is not what it used to be. He fell right after the election.
No, and I think it's a permanent question in Telangana. Where is KCR?
Why do people want to know where he is?
When he's chief minister, he's not to be
That
seen.
is a good question. You're the chief minister. Where are you?
When you're not chief minister also, you're
now
not
why
seen.
do you want to know where he is?
When he's a KCR, he's also tied to the statehood movement, right? So he still has his own fan base. Like, see, in the Congress, Revanth Reddy, Uttam Kumar Reddy are all, tomorrow if they're out of power, no one, maybe Revanth might still be relevant. Uttam Kumar Reddy, I'm not sure how much. But KCR at the end of the day is still somebody people, since 2009 at least, they've been like with him and all. So there is this whole expectation from KCR that he's suddenly going to jump out and reactivate the VRS in what it used to be. Like, Pooja's also right, they still do have some grassroots support. And I think the Congress is also a little I won't say concerned, but they probably don't want to give the BRS that space. Like, if they also, I mean, as an opposition party, they are also going to keep questioning the Congress party.
I have 2 quick points. One, he had a hip replacement surgery, KCR. He's not jumping out of anywhere anytime soon. Number one.
I mean, he's had time to recover. Yeah, come on, bichara.
I'm joking. But I think this entire show of strength is not just for people outside the party from Revanth. I think it's also within his own party, because when he became the chief minister, he was first among equals, right? So he's trying to differentiate himself from others within the party to show that I am the leader number one, nobody comes close. And, if there is another term when Congress comes to power, there shouldn't be any question of leadership again within the Congress.
Leena, just to quickly ask you, this kind of a political behavior, right, where one party when elected just goes against the previous party, we have seen that play out in quite a few states. But this perception that, that this party is corrupt. For example, there is a case against Kavita, the daughter, KCR's daughter. Now KTR has been dragged into a case. So the building of a perception that they're a very corrupt family started much before the election. They did suffer because of it. And now it can continue, right? And that has helped in many other states, building that perception.
Right. If you take Punjab in the 70s and coming to recent, the Karunanidhi, the Jayalalitha fights in Tamil Nadu, with each one propping a case against the other when they are in power, and finally Jayalalitha being convicted for one of those cases. And if you take Kerala, Ummanchandi and the Solar case, we saw when Ummanchandi died, the kind of public, the expression of sadness that they were, wherever his funeral procession went, people thronging those places to talk about their admiration and to pay respects to him. But while the man was alive, there was so much dragging him into the mud over the Solar case and his association, whatever the facts of that case were. But this happens that there's always cases and images being tarnished of your political opponent once they are out of power. And we know that in governments to bring out such cases, it's not a tough thing. Every government can put cases on multiple people on multiple grounds and then drag them into the mud over that and sort of permanently harm their reputation so that their political mileage is lost, which is the trick, the playbook most of these powers use.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because you keep asking questions of everybody all the time.
Go on.
Like our edit feed. But as somebody who's reported from Tamil Nadu very closely, and after that, even in Andhra, United Andhra, does this work? When there is vendetta politics, what happens? Is there sympathy created? Or do people see this as both of them are as bad as each other, let them fight it out?
I think it's both. See, for example, I know that in Tamil Nadu, we use the word vendetta politics quite a bit. At least when I was a young journalist, all of us were saying vendetta politics.
In all your lives, on times now.
Yeah. But I don't know. Now when I look back, I don't know whether we can call it vendetta politics. If there was base for a case, that case should have been filed, right? Whether it's vendetta or not, if there was corruption, then it is the next government has to go ahead and file cases. But does it create perception? Yes. For example, Jayalalitha, when she died, yes, there were a lot of obituaries written where people remembered her for her policies and for her work and her stature as a woman. But she's also equally remembered for the fact that she is one of the few political leaders in India who has been convicted for corruption, right? So that remains. And when Revanth Reddy keeps on filing these cases.
Sorry, Dhanya, but also the perception that the moment Jayalalitha's name is mentioned, there is an equal in the same breath a mention of her wardrobe and the number of footwear that she owned, that kind of perception building using these cases.
Yeah, but that is always remembered, right? That whole image. No, but my point is that once, like for example, Revanth Reddy is continuously filing cases, right? There is now a lot of talk about Adani and Jagan Mohan Reddy and what is the kind of corruption. I also feel that when people believe that corruption hit them, that is when they take it more seriously. For example, in Karnataka, when the Congress blamed the BJP of being 40% corrupt and they said the roads are being impacted, everybody took it very personally because they are all suffering because of that. So if Revanth Reddy is able to keep on badgering the BRS saying that they have done something due to which your electricity is costlier, they have done something due to which your water projects are not working well, it will definitely help. But see, vote-wise, I don't know. I mean, I've tracked so many elections. I don't think we have a correct pattern where we can say that if a party is known to be corrupt, then they are not voted back to power.
But do you think the way in which it is done decides a lot? For example, how Karunanidhi was dragged out of his house in the middle of the night. How Chandrababu Naidu, police, just like last year, police turned up at his house at 3 a.m. to arrest him, right? And was that needed?
No, but for them, for both Naidu and Karunanidhi, there was also age, the age factor, right? Yeah. Tomorrow, if KTR is arrested, the sympathy won't be the same at all for him.
What about KCR, if he's arrested?
Of course, yes. Yeah. If KCR is arrested, there will be a very different kind of sentiment. But since your question was how will it impact, I think it stays in people's memory, right? That stain that somebody is corrupt. Whether it's true or not is for things to be decided later. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it. We come to the end of this episode. So before we end the episode, we have to go to the recommendations. I think Yunus has already recommended 4 biryani places. But other than that, Yunus, what is your recommendation for the week?
Recommendation as
So just like he wouldn't read our messages and emails when he was working for TNM, he didn't read the email sent by Bhuvan where he said, come with a recommendation. Yunus, we'll circle back to you.
You have to recommend a book or a series or anything that you're watching. Anisha, what is your recommendation?
I mean, honestly speaking, for a recommendation, I would always, I think the last thing which I really got to watching on last was this thing called Ted Lasso, I guess, if anybody has watched it.
Yes, I have.
You have?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, a lot of people I know haven't watched it, but I loved it. For a chain, it was a little different. So that's what I would always ask people to watch if they ask what can watch. And also, if anybody is into anime, Blue Eyed Samurai, please check it out.
Okay. Pooja, what is your...
I want to recommend an author. I interviewed him at the WLF. I've finished 3 of his books now. I want to let you know. But Dhirendra K. Jha has written about 4 to 5 books on communalism. He's looked at it from the perspective of an investigative journalist and is very relevant, especially to the conversation that we had today. So, his books.
Anisha?
Coincidentally, mine is also something similar, but my recommendation is not so heavy as Pooja's. If people would like it, give it a shot. Try reading In an Antique Land by Amitav Ghosh. It's historical fiction, I suppose you can call it that. So basically, he did research in a couple of Egyptian villages, and he found a letter or whatever. He came across it. He didn't find it. He came across it. It was addressed by a merchant in North Africa to somebody on the west coast of India, which is obviously Mangalore. And he comes in. So
are you going to give away the whole story?
No,
Just
no, I'm
give
not.
The
I was wondering at what point are you going to come in?
Teaser. Okay. So Arabic doesn't have consonants. It doesn't have vowels. Okay. So the letter only has addressed to a person whose name is just spelled out in consonants. So he comes looking for that person to Mangalore.
Stop.
Obviously, he's not finding it. The person is long gone. But yeah.
Oh my God, Anisha. Okay, stop. Now let's go to Leena. Leena, what is your recommendation?
Okay, since I said that I'm going to recommend my work at the end of this podcast, I'll recommend my 2014 reportage of the Sangh Parivar and the foot soldiers of it who orchestrated the bomb blasts, the 4 to 5 big bomb blasts in India. It's called The Believer. It is a profile of Swami Asimanand. And along with that, can I also recommend one more? It is the conversation that Parvati Tiruvotha has with Anna Vetikada. That's up on the Wayanad Literature Festival channel, where she talks about, and whoever can follow Malayalam can watch it there to understand Parvati's fight as a movie star for the kind of gender equality that she's asking for.
So I want to recommend 2 very different things. One is to read Reports on the Scroll, done by Malini, Supriya, and many other authors on Bastar. I think they have, over the years, they have done a lot of fantastic reporting. And my second is a very wide recommendation. Everybody, please start watching Turkish series.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a great de-stressor. You can choose whatever you want. There are hundreds and thousands of series that you can choose from. So with that, we come to an end of South Central. Thank you very much, Yunus, Leena, for joining us. And Leena, hopefully you'll be back in the studio from next week. To all those joining us, don't forget to become a subscriber. We have some really big stories lined up. So do read those stories. Hopefully they will release in the next week or 2. Thank you to the entire South Central team, especially my producer Bhuvan and editor Jasimali, Megha Mugundan, Ajay and Vignesh Manikam.